Hello again. Glad to find me on the podcast dial. This is Mark's Musings, and I'm Mark. You can find us on wctv.org in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and we are simultaneously broadcast on WCTV, iTunes, and SoundCloud. The podcast generally includes information about the art of writing, where we interview local writers and talk about their stories. Today we are pleased to have with us a local writer by the name of Edith Maxwell, who has written over 20 novels in the murder mystery genre. Welcome, Edith.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here. Thanks,
Nice to have you here. And we're hoping that the spring weather will last and we'll have more warm weather on its way.
It's beautiful out there today.
So we're very glad to have you here. I remember you visiting Wilmington a couple of years ago, and where you visited the library and a local writers group. We were very excited and pleased at that time to hear about all your interests. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get started in writing?
I've always been a writer. I wrote lots and lots of stories as a child, and I recently uncovered an old scrapbook that had a short story I wrote that was published when I was either 9 or 11, and I won a contest in the Pasadena Star News newspaper, and they paid me $2 for The Viking Girl.
Isn't that great?
I think I was 9. But I didn't really write fiction again for some decades. I wrote academic writing and some freelance journalism, software manuals, but I really got started in earnest again after I got laid off a job in 2008.
Wow, so there was a long career there
lag.
before
Yes,
a lag.
Several careers in there.
Yes, and I heard that you mentioned Pasadena or California there, so you originally came from...
I'm a fourth-generation Californian,
California.
But I've now lived in Massachusetts longer than I lived in California.
Oh, that sounds...
Yeah, and my sons were born here.
That sounds great. That
Right.
sounds great. So, so that's how you got started. How about your first published piece? Did you finally write some things for magazines or local papers or something like that?
I had several short stories, short pieces of short crime fiction published in juried anthologies.
Oh,
But
yes.
my first mystery novel came out in the fall of 2012.
Oh, neat. And what was that?
That was called Speaking of Murder.
Oh, nice.
It was published under a pen name Tace Baker, and it featured a contemporary linguistics professor in a town sort of like Ipswich, Massachusetts.
Neat. I noticed that from your bio that you write under different pen names. How does that work, and how does that help with your fan base, for instance?
Well, that's a little tricky because I had the 5-book Local Foods Mysteries as Edith Maxwell, which is my actual name.
Yes.
And I was looking to start another series also with Kensington Publishing.
Oh, okay.
And my editor said he would like to do the country store mysteries. So Death Over Easy is the most recent one.
Yes.
But he wanted me to use a pen name.
Oh, okay.
Because they wanted it to look like a new author in the bookstores, a different author.
Yes,
so the Local Foods Mysteries, they gave me 5. I published 5 with Kensington, but they did not sell spectacularly well.
Yes.
They had a solid fan base, but they weren't really filling the bank coffers of the publisher. So they wanted me to use a different name with this for these country store mysteries.
Yes.
So I came up with Maddie Day, and they have been selling spectacularly well, which is delightful.
That is super.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's nice to have a new outlook on life. Starting over again. With a different name.
But then I also published the Quaker Midwife Mysteries. Charity's Burden is the 4th one. It just came out last week. But that says Edith Maxwell, but it's with a different publisher.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you had 3 though pen names.
So Tace Baker had 2 books, and now she's on sabbatical.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Very
Because
good.
it was with a very, very small press, and I basically just didn't make very much money from it.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
can't write 4 books a year. So
Yeah.
3 is enough.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know. I see some of the top writers. Of course, they have helpers with them, but they're putting out 2 or 3 books every month or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, my God, how do they do that?
Well, I have a friend in Exeter, New Hampshire, who's now writing with James Patterson.
Oh yes, yes,
And
yeah.
Brendan Dubois, he's a great writer. He writes in all kinds of genres, mostly crime fiction. And he loves the relationship, and the book's doing well. But that's how James Patterson can do it, because he has other people write them.
Right,
Yeah.
with him or for him
Yeah.
too. Yes, that sounds great. So I'm recently bought the Kindle edition of Murder Most Foul, and I'm enjoying that very much. And that takes place in a farming industry.
Hmm.
So tell us about that. Did you grow up in a farming community, or how did you get interested in that?
I didn't grow up in one, but when my sons, who are now 30 and 32, were little boys, we moved up to West Newbury from Medford,
Okay.
and bought a property that I had a small certified organic farm on.
Isn't that
When I
something?
was taking a break from high-tech work and being home with my kids.
When you say certified organic farm, or what does that mean? Do you have to go through different?
It's quite an application process. You have to get the soil tested. You have to say every what they call off-farm input that you're going to use.
Wow.
And if you use an organic pesticide, an organic, there are certain products you can use
Sure, sure.
on certain insects, but it used to be a private certifying agency. Now it's federal legislation,
Isn't
so it's
that
a
so-
different process. But it's
Now-
still very complicated.
When you were doing that, did you give your foods away, or did you sell some of them?
Oh, I sold them. No, I had
an actual farm.
I had a farm stand at my house. I went to farmers markets, and I had a small CSA, a certified
What do you call
sustainable
that?
agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
So that's where you got your idea, because I noticed that this Cam Flaherty, who is the major character in this story that I'm reading, is doing the same type of thing.
Exactly. So I had a background in that, for sure.
Yeah.
I never owned chickens, but when I was writing Murder Most Foul, one of my sons was working on an organic farm, and they did have chickens.
Yeah.
So he was my chicken consultant.
And I noticed when she's going to the hoop house and she's planting all of her seeds in different trays,
Yes.
she's giving me ideas too, because I have a garden at my house too, and I say, oh gee, that sounds
You
interesting.
can do that, yeah.
I can do that
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
So those add a lot of other information to a story. So it's background and setting and things like that. So
Yeah.
it makes the story more interesting when
Thank you.
you have.
That's always what I aim at in each of my series, is to have that level of detail, not too much detail, only as it serves the story, but
Serves
to
the
make
purpose. Yeah.
it come alive for the readers.
Yeah. All right. Tell us either that story or another story. How do you come up with your ideas? Where do you? They were all murder mysteries, or are they mostly?
I only write murder mysteries.
Okay.
They all feature a female amateur sleuth.
Okay.
So somebody whose job is not to solve crimes.
Okay.
She's not a police officer. She's not FBI. She's not a private investigator. She's a farmer or a midwife or a cook.
Yes.
Or a bicycle repair mechanic. And ideas, I just have a very overactive imagination, and I always have since I was a kid. So that's never a problem. It's never a problem to come up with a new plot, a new murder weapon, a new set of characters for each book.
Yeah. It seems like as I'm reading the story, when I think you're going one way, you go another way.
Good.
And so it's nice that you don't. It's not a story that I know that she was going to do that, or I knew who the culprit was, because
that's always the goal, to keep you guessing.
Keep you guessing.
And turning the pages. I'll tell you a little anecdote. My best friend lives in Medford, and she came up for dinner last night and spent the night.
Yes.
And she picked up Charity's Burden, my latest Quaker midwife mystery, just she was going to go upstairs and read her sort of heavy nonfiction book. And she sat there on my couch, chapter after chapter. She said, I have to take this upstairs now. I said, well, that's our goal as authors, keeping readers awake, one book at a time.
That's nice that you saw her going chapter to chapter, because I'm a very slow reader, and it takes me forever to get through a book. But some of my friends are speed readers, and they can finish a novel in 2 nights. And I say, wow, how do you do that?
I can do that if I...
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I'm a fast reader.
My God, you'll have to teach me how to do something like that. Well, that sounds terrific. So you started early on, and then there was a lag in your career, and then you started to write some of these various stories, and some of them are farm related, and then others are midwife. Now, how did that happen? How did you decide to change to another setting?
I've been a Quaker, a member of the Religious Society of Friends for 30 years.
Yes.
And for that whole time, I attended Amesbury Friends meeting.
Okay.
But I didn't live in Amesbury until 7 years ago.
Okay.
And I read a newspaper article in 2013 about the Great Fire of 1888.
Okay.
And Amesbury was world famous for their graceful, sturdy carriages. They were shipped all over the world. Mm-hmm. And this fire burned down almost all the carriage factories.
Oh, my God,
in 1889,
yes.
1888. So I was walking to Quaker meeting, walking to church one Sunday morning, and I got a short story in my head about a mill girl. My house was built for mill workers in 1880.
Okay.
It's just up the hill from some of the mill buildings. And so I got an idea about a Quaker mill girl who solves the mystery of the arson of the Great Fire.
Oh.
Now, historically, it wasn't arson, but I write fiction. That's a little creative license.
Sure.
So I wrote that story. It was published in Best New England Crime Fiction, an anthology of the next year. The characters and setting didn't want to go away. During those same years when I had my organic farm, I was also teaching childbirth classes and doing labor support, working as a doula with pregnant women.
Yes.
And helping them along their childbirth, not being the midwife, but being sort of a support person.
Yes.
So I decided to make up her Aunt Rose, who's a midwife in her mid-20s, independent businesswoman, not yet married. And she hears secrets and can go places that the police detective can't. Because he's not going to go into women's bedrooms.
Sure.
And women sometimes let loose secrets while in the throes of labor.
Yeah.
And Rose she's already a Quaker. She's already a bit of an outsider. And it makes her a good amateur sleuth.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah. And I love that series. It's there will be at least 7 books in it.
And that's series. How do you decide that there's going to be 7 books, or do you have
the publisher decides? So I don't self-publish any of my books.
Okay.
So I got a contract for 3 books. They extended it for 2 more books. And then we found out last fall that this publisher was dropping its crime fiction line.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to move a series midstream.
Yes.
So I did manage to find another publisher that was interested and gave me a contract for books 5, which was already finished, and books 6 and 7.
Isn't that wonderful?
Right.
That's terrific. Yeah.
The Country Store Mysteries are renewed through book 9, and I'm hoping for more because they're doing quite well.
That very, very good. And again, the ideas for that just sort of come naturally as you're walking along, or I noticed in my stories, sometime in the middle of the night, I'm having a dream, and all of a sudden I wake up and I say, "Oh, that's a good idea for a story," and so I can't wait until the morning. I have to get up and write some notes.
Yes, I always have a pad of paper and a pen by my bed,
yes.
just in that case, because if I try to remember it, I know I won't.
You forget. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's nice that you're able to do that, and you have different areas that you're writing in.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds great. So, how do you do you have various social media that you associate with?
Yes, I'm very active on Facebook.
Okay.
I happen to really like it.
Yeah.
So I have an author page, Edith Maxwell, and Maddie Day Author also has an author page.
Okay.
And so I'm quite active there. I'm also a member of a group blog, The Wicked Authors, We're
Okay.
6 New England mystery authors, and some of us write under several names. So we blog every weekday at wickedauthors.com.
Oh,
And then
wow.
we also have a Facebook group, so
Okay.
the Wicked Authors. And we'd love for people to join us, and we have giveaways, and we have guests, and
Now, so that's interesting. How do you find the time to write and also keep up with your social media?
Yeah.
Do you put aside blocks of time for those activities
mostly I put aside blocks of time for writing.
for writing?
So I am most creative in the morning. Some
Okay.
people aren't. I'm always working by 7.
Okay.
7 every morning except Sunday.
Okay.
And so I spend all morning writing. I take my walk, I have lunch, and then I do some of that other stuff in the afternoon, the blog posts, the social media. I'm also on Instagram and on Twitter
So
under both names.
every day is a work day for you then.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty
Sunday I usually take a day of rest.
Yeah.
I usually don't work before I go off to church, and I try to relax in the afternoon. Depends on what's happening, but
Good.
Yeah.
And how does that take time away from your family, or do you sort of do they complain too and say, "Ma, you're going to spend time with us"? I know that your sons are older now.
yeah, my sons don't live in Massachusetts right now.
Okay.
I mean, we talk every week on the phone, and they come home, or I'll go down there. My one son lives in Sulphur Spring, Maryland. So,
Oh yes.
and I live with a man who likes to spend a lot of his time alone,
Oh good.
and he
Okay.
watches television, and I don't.
Yeah.
So we always eat dinner together, and
So
usually when we get home at the end of the day, we'll sit down and have a drink and
that
catch
sounds-
up, and then
sounds-
after dinner, I read, and he goes off to his television, and it works out fine.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And you have some pets that you also have at the house.
We're down to 2 elderly cats now.
Okay,
We
cat-
used to have 4.
Oh my God! Yes.
There's a cat in each of my, well, not in the Cape Cod Mysteries, but in each of my other series, and they're all our cats.
Yes.
So the cat in the Country Store Mysteries is a tuxedo cat named Birdie, and he's on the cover of every book. And he died 2 years ago, so it's a really
Oh.
sweet way to keep him going.
Yes.
Because he was just, even when he was 14, he was like a kitten. He was always so curious and
Yeah.
very sweet and affectionate, so that's fun.
It's nice that you bring other pet animals and dogs. I noticed that are in your novels too.
There's a dog in the
Yeah.
Local Foods Mysteries.
Yeah.
In the Cozy Capers book group mysteries set on Cape Cod, my protagonist is allergic to mammal pets.
Oh,
So
okay.
she has an African gray parrot.
Oh.
And it's quite a talkative parrot named Belle, who is really a character in the books.
So that is so interesting. Now, see, you have you can bring in your readership in different ways
Oh, yeah.
because it's not only just the murder mystery, but it's also the setting,
Mhm.
the animals, the characters.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you grab their interest in a lot of different ways.
In this Cape Cod series has also done really well. So I made up a town on Cape Cod named West Ham,
Okay.
kind of probably sort of modeled on Falmouth.
Okay.
And there's Mac Almeida has a bike shop that she owns, and she can do bike repair. And she's a member of a Cozy Mystery book group.
Yes.
And so the Cozy Capers book group gets involved in helping her solve the crimes.
Oh, okay.
So it's sort of a cozy mystery about a cozy mystery book group. And I just love it, and it's on an unusual 1-year deal. It's an exclusive between Kensington and Barnes and Noble.
Oh, okay.
So it's only available in paperback from Barnes and Noble until next January, and then it'll be available on Kindle and iTunes and audiobook and everything else, and available everywhere. But it's done hugely well, just available from that one source. So we've got high hopes for this series.
That sounds great. Now, do you have technical support? I know, for instance, for your crime mysteries, do you have someone who's in law enforcement
Yes.
help you
Good
with
question.
some of the technicalities?
Yes. For my Indiana series, I have the Brown County State Police Chief and the Nashville City Police Chief, who I can ask questions on email because the way the organizations, the criminal justice is organized differently in every state.
Yes. Yeah.
In Massachusetts, when I moved to Amesbury, I took the Citizens Police Academy. So it was every Wednesday night for 8 weeks. And it was just the police letting citizens know about how they do their work. And
Yes.
we saw somebody being tased. We met the canine dog. We went into court and had a judge talk to us. So
you got
an
familiar.
Amesbury police detective, Kevin Donovan, I can shoot him a paragraph if I have a paragraph the police are doing something in one of my Massachusetts contemporary mysteries.
Yeah.
And he'll say, yeah, that's pretty good, but we would do this differently.
Isn't that? That's,
And then for my historical series, I found a replica of a police and public safety officers manual from 1870.
Okay.
And it's got all their procedures, all their regulations, and like little case studies.
Yes.
And so from that, I learned that when a police officer is going to arrest someone, they have to lay their hand on that person's arm. They have to make physical contact with them before they say, I arrest you for this.
Isn't that
And
interesting?
maybe nobody else in the world knows that that's accurate, but it's in my books. And I know it's real. So I really like to bring in those details when I can find them.
That is quite a detail.
Yeah.
Because you want to be accurate about,
Everything
that you, because somebody's going to read it and say, oh, but that's not true, or something like that.
Well, I have learned that historical train people are very picky.
Oh,
So
yes.
if I'm ever going to put a train route or a train ride in one of my historical books, I actually also have an expert that I can ask.
Yes, yeah.
Is this correct?
I've been writing some, like I told you, I've been writing some Western movies that take place in the 1860s.
Oh,
and I talked about some use of pistols and rifles. And I mentioned what they were using at that time. And I had a friend of mine that say, oh, but that's wrong.
Good.
You have to do this, and this. And so he was right that I had to change some of the facts that I had made about that particular book, because there are always going to be someone who picks out the mistakes.
I don't personally know anything about guns.
Yes.
And so none of my protagonists know anything about guns either.
Oh, okay.
So they'll say a gun.
Okay, yeah.
Or something that looked like a rifle.
So you're not specific, yeah.
I mean, I could go do that research. I have ways to do that, but I have to do so much else that I just, when she said that, he pulled out a gun.
I know.
I'm not going to say exactly what model it is and what caliber it is, because she doesn't know it anyway.
Yeah. Well, that sounds terrific. Yeah. I noticed one of my cameras just shut off, so we'll just have to deal with that later.
Yeah.
So, so if somebody wanted to buy your books, where would they? How would they go about doing that?
All my books are available everywhere except the Murder on Cape Cod, which is only, as I said, available from Barnes and Noble this year. But they're all in ebook formats. They're available on Amazon, at independent bookstores. If anyone would like a signed copy, order it from Jabberwocky Books in Newburyport.
Okay.
And I'll go over and sign it.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And then they'll mail it to you.
So as a starting point, they might even just go to your website. And then from there, they could then...
Oh, for sure they can go to my website, and there are links there. And you can see all of my writing and my short stories on my website. But I do like to support independent bookstores.
Yeah. So there are not only a website, but there are also independent bookstores.
Absolutely. And of course, you can check if your library has it. I mean... Many people can't afford to buy all the books they want to buy, and thank goodness we have great libraries. So check your library system, and if they don't have it, request it.
I noticed also that you had various events planned over the next couple of weeks. So besides meeting here at the TV station doing a podcast, you go to other places too. So
absolutely.
What are some of those?
I was just in Cambridge at the Cambridge Library with a Kensington Cozy Mystery mini conference. There were 21 authors. That was fun.
Oh, yes.
This will be in May, so it'll be over. But on April 27th is the Newburyport Literary Festival.
I noticed
and
that.
And I have a morning panel talking about Charity's Burden, and then I'm moderating a panel of other historical authors.
So there are specific questions that when you appear at a particular event, there is a theme to that particular presentation.
It depends on the event, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just open-ended.
Not usually. There's
No.
usually some sort of thing. And then the third book in the Quaker Midwife Mysteries, Turning the Tide, which has a theme of women's suffrage in 1888. It's been nominated for an Agatha Award for Best Historical Novel this year,
Yes.
as were the first two books in the series. And so the Agatha is named after Agatha Christie, obviously, and there's an annual conference called Malice Domestic
Oh.
that takes place in Bethesda every year, and that's the weekend of May 3rd and 4th or something this year, that weekend.
Yes.
So I'll be there with hundreds of mystery fans and a bunch of my fellow authors, and I'll find out at the banquet if I get the Agatha.
Isn't that wonderful?
There's only 5 people nominated.
Isn't it wonderful? That's so nice to be given an award for your work, and that people recognize you,
and even to be nominated is a huge
just
honor.
to be nominated
Very much.
is right.
Yeah.
So that sounds great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? I know that we've now talked for about 40 minutes here. So anything else you'd like to say about your latest books, or your stories, or your events?
Well, the 6th Country Store Mystery, Strangled Eggs and Ham, will be out in June, late June. I hope people will come and visit our blog. I hope people will find me on social media and check out my website, sign up for my newsletter. I have a fun author newsletter that I send every month or two. I love hearing from readers. I absolutely love hearing from fans. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, it's so pleasurable to have you here, because you're so interesting and you have such a wide assortment of interests, not only the writing part, but also the farming and your association with the Quakers and other events too. So it's nice that you have such a broad interest.
Thank you.
And it bring all those interests. You're able to bring into your stories too. It's nice because they say you write best what you know best. You know, so.
Although some of my author friends say write what you want to know, because then you get to go do the research and learn about something new. So that's good too.
That's a good.
So, for example, I don't know anything about bicycle repair.
Yes.
But I have 2 sons who are very big into bicycles, and they advise me, and I've learned a lot about bicycles.
Yeah. There you go. See, you're always learning something new.
Right.
Well, very good. I think we have come to the end of the program now. So, without further ado, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming in to the interview with me. Remember, you can come here for our listeners once a month, and we have a new author every month, but we're pleased to have Edith Maxwell with us, and please look her up on her website, edithmaxwell.com.
Right.
And also look her up on Facebook, and look up her books too on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, because they're a wonderful read, and I've been enjoying them too. And,
thank you. Happy reading.
Yes, happy reading. Well, thank you, and that's it for now, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.